coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast. I'm afraid after a week or two of vague happiness and joy on the pod, we're not going to be in that kind of mood today, I'm afraid. This is coming 24 hours or so after the end of the Spurs game, which, as you know, was a pretty depressing spectacle all round. The worst thing about it all, I think, is that Spurs well and truly deserved it, but there we go. We get some of the unpleasantness out very early on. It's not just me wittering, fortunately. I also am joined by Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt. I'm here to witter.
Good, that's what we're here for. And Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Evening. Can't wait for this.
I think we deserve some kind of credit. I was going to say medals, that might be overdoing it, but some kind of credit for every week this season at least. We've plugged away, either all of us or a subset of us, and we've done it, I think. Because there can't have been many seasons in recent years as bad as this to start a podcast from an Arsenal point of view, but we've done it. The only way is up, hopefully. Anyway, and I'm Matt H, for those interested. Right, we had two games this week. Normally we'd do them in order, but let's face it, there's really only one place to start, and that's at the soon-to-be knocked-down White Hart Lane. It's a shame it's being built up again, but let's just enjoy the fact it's being knocked down. Arsenal went to Spurs yesterday, having had a fairly good weekend of results for them, with Manchester clubs dropping points this week and all the rest of it in terms of that top four race. But it didn't go well. Spurs won 2-0, and quite frankly, if it wasn't for Petr Cech, they could have scored a lot more. They were better, they were stronger, faster, fitter, they were everything. To me, the damning thing, one of the many damning things, was Jamie Redknapp was asked for his opinion, always a joy. And everything he said about Spurs being so much better than Arsenal, the most depressing thing was he was right. And when Redknapp's right, and you find yourself agreeing with him, you know there's something seriously wrong. Anyway, enough of me. Matt, we'll go through some bits and pieces, but Matt, any particular thoughts on this latest depressing chapter in the season?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the worst thing is that I know in previous games a lot of people have spoken about things like character, design, work rate, but the thing here was that they're just better than us. Really, in all aspects of the game. I know it was 0-0 at half time and we were solid in places, but they had two great chances to score. You usually expect them to take it. So 0-0 probably slightly flattered us. And then the second half collapsed pretty swiftly, actually. I think we conceded the penalty before they'd even finished showing the replay of the first goal.
It did seem like that, yeah. It was ridiculously quick. I think it was 100 and something seconds. I have a vague recollection, 120 seconds or something between the one goal and the next. So yeah, it really wasn't, or the penalty being awarded. So yeah, it really wasn't very much.
Yeah, and I think once we went 2-0 down, that was always going to be it. And as you said, we can be grateful to Petr Cech, despite the criticism he's faced this season. He had a great game and stopped it from being 3, 4, 5, anything really. Yeah,
he really rolled back the years to some extent. Like, he's always been pretty good. Although I say we've had our criticism of him this season, but some of those saves were fantastic. Pete, anything in a kind of general sense about this particular game?
It was in some ways, I think, although horrible to say, it was at least pleasing that it wasn't through lack of effort or anything like that. They were just a whole lot better than us, and it was a whole lot better than us. And in some ways, that's pleasing that we can't blame them for lack of effort or anything like that. So they did their best, and they're just not good enough at the moment compared to Spurs, which is traumatic to say and traumatic to watch, but. That is the case.
You're really reaching for a silver lining, which I admire. But there comes a point. Yeah, we've had 20 years of being better than Spurs, and by some distance for a lot of that time. But this has been coming, actually. The last couple. I mean, we barely squeaked past them last year. We've been ridden our luck over the other companies. And I know it's not just about which of us finishes higher. There's bigger fish to fry, hopefully for both teams. But it's a pretty good barometer, for want of a better word, in terms of how the respective clubs are doing. So I think it's interesting that this is now confirmed. The St. whatever Totteringham's Day is in reverse. I'm not even going to. I've heard what it might be called. I'm not going to say it, but but fair enough. They deserve credit for being that much better and looking more like a team and looking organised and all the rest of it. Because on paper, I'm not sure some of those individuals match. I'm not sure there's a great difference, I should say, between the individuals in terms of their ability. So it's interesting to see what a difference they are, what a different team they are. Sorry, go on, Pete.
I think that the fact that it meant that we won't finish above them this season for the first time in 21 years is not really the worst part of it at all. But it's in fact it's not of any relevance, is it? You don't judge on whether you finish above Tottenham or not. And this season has been bad in many other ways other than not finishing above Tottenham. They could be below us, and this would still have been a bad season. It's of no relevance at all.
It's not, and as I think it's been coming anyway, and it's bound to happen. Yeah, it's just an extra little bit of salt in the wound, as it were. But you're right, it doesn't change the fundamentals that we've been here week after week, it seems, and quite a lot of that time negatively. That's has had nothing to do with Spurs for the vast majority of the season. Let's talk about some more specifics then. So the lineup, first of all. Now, there was some interesting team moves. There was some stuff that happened on Wednesday. We'll come back to that. And on Wednesday, of course, there were changes made in preparation for this game and also after the Cup semi-final and that kind of stuff. I think people were surprised with the defence shape. So with Monreal, basically, so no Holding to be seen. He was on the bench, but not in the first 11. Monreal coming into the back three with Gabriel and Koscielny, which immediately looked odd to me. I'm not using Monreal to his strengths. Matt, any thoughts about that or any of the other sort of the shape of the team?
Yeah, it was a surprise. Because I know it's a small sample size, but obviously our best game with three at the back was comfortably the one against City. Rob Holding looked great. I don't think you can say this was too big an occasion for him because he's played really well in big occasions before. I think he probably deserved to start. And Monreal has proven himself to play well in that left wing back role. So I'm not sure why we pushed him back to centre back. And then I guess there's the question for this game and longer term: is Oxlade-Chamberlain going to be our first choice right wing back over Bellerin? Because I mean, Oxlade-Chamberlain, there's no criticism of him. He's played really well and he's always given everything. But defensively, well, he's not a defender.
No,
he's strong going forward, but I don't think it's fair to leave him that exposed, especially when he's on the same flank as Mesut Ozil. So there's no tracking back coming. And I don't think he's a good enough defender to be able to cope with that, as we saw with when he sort of flew into Son for Eriksen's miss. So that's interesting that Bellerin wasn't starting. I think the rest of the team probably picked itself. And then Giroud up front. Our best form of the season, regardless of system, came when Sanchez was up front and when Giroud made an impact off the bench against tiring defences, and yet that seems to have been completely scrapped. I know a lot of the team's been underperforming, but Giroud in the last few games has just offered nothing. In the first half, I said if he was at least being a nuisance or doing something, at least he's benefiting the team, but he literally couldn't have done any less. For somebody of his size, you sort of look at him and think he'd be more of a target man, but he doesn't seem to relish any sort of physical battle at all. And I really don't comprehend why Wenger has so much patience with starting him.
No, and that was going to be my other point about the lineup. So yeah, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Why he's starting when, as you said, the three at the back hasn't been going very long, but the Sanchez up front, we had quite a lot of that, and generally speaking, very well received. I mean, to put it into context, of course, Sanchez was awful yesterday. So was Ozil. So was everyone to one degree or another. The only person I thought might possibly escape was Ramsey, but then he made a few dodgy decisions as well. I think towards the end of in the second half at least. Pete, any thoughts on that lineup about the Giroud up front or about Rob Holding not being in, who you've admired on here before?
Yeah, I was, of course, distraught to see Rob out. I didn't really get that at all. I assumed he must be injured. And I know we're going to talk about Leicester later, but again, it was the same against Leicester. It was the same back three without Holding, and that time he wasn't on the bench. And so I'd vaguely wondered if he was injured or just not, just lacking fitness or something, or not able to play. And it seemed very odd not to be playing him there when Monreal is plainly doing brilliantly in the wing-back position. Why would you bring in Kieran Gibbs, who wasn't great again in that position against Leicester? He was all right, and I like Kieran, so I don't, it's nothing personal against him, but it just didn't make sense to take Holding out unless he was injured, as far as I can see. As Matt said, he's young and inexperienced, but he'd already shown that he can handle the big occasion. I don't get it.
No, just to follow up on the Giroud point, he received the ball 23 times. Not one of those was in the penalty area, according to my little stats app here. So whilst he, and I agree, he didn't look really up for it, but on the occasions he did get involved in play, he only completed, I think, 17 out of 20-something passes, which is pretty poor. He's not getting the ball anyway. The way that the shape of the team is just not right. I mean, something I did read this morning suggests that this whole three at the back thing is essentially because Wenger's completely run out of ideas with anything else, and these are the dying embers of the season. He's trying to do something different, and it worked, whether it was a bit of luck or whatever it might have been. Against City, it worked slightly less well against Leicester, and then has not worked at all well yesterday. And the Holding thing, unless there is some kind of injury, it seems remarkable. Though if he's on the bench, you assume he should be healthy if he's on the bench. Go on, sorry.
If you are going to start Giroud up front, why doesn't he stay central? Why isn't he just there, basically, on the D, on one D or the other? Actually, either one doesn't really matter. Ours defending or theirs attacking. He just needs to stand there, doesn't he? For the whole game, he just doesn't need to be anywhere else. He just needs to be running backwards and forwards a short distance there, trying to occupy the central defenders. Where he goes half the time, I've got no idea. Whenever I was looking for him yesterday, I was like, where is he? He wasn't there.
Well, again, the passes. So there's not any inside the area. There's only one that's beyond the 18-yard line, if you see what I mean. Past it, not in the area, but past it. All the rest have come either down the left or down the right. What none of them have done is really, standing on the D or something along those lines. It's just not. They're all long passes as well. Not all of them, but in the main net, they're long balls forward to him. So I don't know why you have the team set up with the three at the back with that width that you give it by doing that, and then just bang the balls, long or down the channels. There's nothing. None of these are sort of down and across. They're all sort of fairly hopeful stuff. Now, some of that, of course, is because we were on the back foot for huge amounts of the game. Let's leave the Giroud problems for the moment. Arsenal lucky to go in 0-0 at half-time. There were those two Spurs chances very close to each other, which Matt alluded to one of them, the Ali miss and the Eriksen miss. I don't know how Ali missed that. I had assumed that was 1-0. And Ox was involved in that, if I've got this the right way around, in a good way, because he made the challenge to perhaps put him off getting it over the line. But then he gave the ball away, essentially, which led to the Eriksen chance, which also I couldn't quite believe had gone over. Anything about those particular misses? Were they a sign of things to come, Matt? Were you worried at that point?
Yeah, I was terrified. No, considering the form both of them have been in, I thought we were pretty lucky that they both missed. I guess Ali, as you said, was probably put off, but Eriksen's no real excuse. I think it clipped the top of the bar, but yeah. But I think although the only real shot in the first half from us I can think of is Ramsey's one. I thought we didn't finish the half too badly. I know we were probably lucky to be 0-0, but I didn't think it was going dreadfully. We obviously penned in a lot, but I was still hopeful with the strength we had on the bench. Although I always look at the bench before the match and think that's quite strong. And when it comes to actually using the bench, I have doubts. When I see the players come on, I have doubts about how strong it is, to be honest. But no, those chances, I think, you hope that those are maybe signs that it's not going to be Tottenham's day. But no, I don't think I ever really thought that.
No, I was trying to cling to exactly that kind of thing, as football fans do. We look for those kind of omens, for want of a better word. Yeah, I agree. Actually, I thought we had come back better towards the end of the first half, although we didn't penetrate hugely. I thought Ramsey was looking pretty competent. It was a relief to get to half time. Let's put it that way. But I thought we had improved a little bit in the sort of middle 20 minutes, if that makes sense. So I think the few minutes at the very end, perhaps Spurs were doing okay again, but I think we were doing all right for portions of that first half without looking particularly impressive. Now, I've written down in my notes, in the second half, there was an early Giroud chance, and I can't quite picture it, but I seem to remember it was a bit of a sitter. Pete, can you remember that? Am I going mad? Or
early in the second half?
Yeah, I think so. That's what my note says anyway.
Was this the left footer from the edge of the area?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
He blasted fairly high and wide.
Yeah, and he looked like he had more time, but then I suppose if he's had no time up to that point, I've seen none of the ball up to that point, I should say, then yeah, that's going to take a bit of luck. Matt, am I remembering that correctly? Do you have any memory of that one? It was only yesterday. I must be getting old. Maybe I've just tried to blank the whole game out of my head.
At the start of the second half?
I think it was early-ish in the second half, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure I remember that exactly. It could have happened, but I do remember, or I do have the feeling that we started the second half pretty well. And up until they scored their goals was probably when we were looking as comfortable as we did, both defensively and at least starting to offer something going forward. So yeah, that definitely could have happened.
Okay, well we won't linger on it because it didn't make any difference, because within 10 minutes of the second half, let's do it properly, within 13 minutes of the second half starting, we were not 1 but 2-0 down. We don't like to do things by halves. Pete, you get the short straw. What would you like to talk?
Do I have to?
It's your turn kind of thing. Do you? I mean, you can be as brief as you like, but Spurs, Ali did very well to, he just kept on, didn't he, to get that first goal, and any thoughts you have about the penalty? A soft penalty, but I think it was a penalty.
Oh, definitely. It was a penalty. Just don't make the tackle. I mean, he boots the ball out of play anyway, doesn't he? So, you don't even need to get to him. He's going to run it out, and what the point was of sticking your foot on his ankle, I've got no idea. No, it was pointless, and definitely a penalty, and quite depressing so soon after the other goal, which I don't know. It was it was certainly determination on their part, wasn't it, and a lack of determination on our part, which is odd, because it's one thing that this new shaped defence does seem to have shown, is the ability to be determined to keep people out in those sorts of situations. I know it hadn't in the first half, but it looked like there should have been an opportunity to clear that ball before it fell back to Ali, to just nudge in basically, and that was I feel we should have done a lot better. So someone should have reacted. But then again, when things like this happen and balls are bouncing around in the box, it is just who reacts quickest. And unfortunately, in this case, it was Dele Alli, I guess.
I've got an impression in my head, and again, this is going to sound a bit vague, and I apologise for that, but a lot of the goals we've conceded this year have come at the end of a sort of panicked defence. So not many sort of long shots or storming headers, whatever, but quite a lot of ball bouncing around, and it's just not, people aren't taking ownership. And again, I may be misremembering, or I may just be remembering the bad ones, but that seems to be my impression, that whilst the defence can look pretty organised, they have these moments of shambles, basically. I mean, we've conceded, where are we now, 42 goals in the league, which is the same as Liverpool, interestingly, but nowhere near what the rest of the top 6 have conceded. Everton have only conceded 40. West Brom have only conceded 1 more at 43. Middlesbrough have only conceded 45. We've conceded 3 goals fewer than Middlesbrough, and we've played 2 games more. So I mean, that, however it's getting there, that is one. I'm not saying it's our only problem by any means, but that's certainly one of the problems. Matt, any thoughts on that quick 3-minute sort of 2-goal concession?
Yeah, it killed us off. I mean, the first goal, we maybe had a couple of half chances to clear the ball, as you said, ball bouncing around. I think it came from a throw-in initially, and Kane was stronger than Gabriel. But I mean, at 1-0, we're still in the game. You know that's going to give them the momentum. They're going to be on a high. So just keep it solid for 5 or 10 minutes. Do not straight from the kickoff. I think it was Xhaka just got caught on the ball, and then they're running out of defence, and there was not a lot of hope. I know people have said about the penalty that Kane threw his leg at Gabriel, but that was after Gabriel had stamped right on his ankle. So don't think we have any complaints about that. Kane obviously scored the penalty very well, and I think from 2-0, there's no way back. There's no way back. Whereas after that first goal, all right, it's not a great goal to concede, but I think we just need to get together there and just try and keep it solid for 10 minutes, because as soon as you can see the second goal straight away, you're not coming back from that.
Yeah, there's a I mean, absolutely right. There's something I've heard over the last couple of years where people say, 2-0 is a very dangerous scoreline. That's always the thing they say. But statistically, apparently, and I haven't done this myself, but one of the guys I've seen on BT Sport, the German guy, says actually 2-0 is pretty much a very good scoreline for the team that's 2-0 up. You know, generally speaking, the team that's 2-0 up will win the game. So it's not a dangerous scoreline in the big book of football cliches is wrong on that one, as it probably is in so many others as well. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. That the concession of 2 quick goals, particularly that the penalty being such a soft one, and no argument about it at all. And then Quick Check got some criticism, as I think we mentioned, for not stopping the penalty, but I think he more than made up for that with some of the fantastic saves that he made. Let's not go through. Oh, sorry, go on. Who's?
Well, I think what I was trying to say earlier was neither of those goals. I mean, the penalty was a well hit penalty, but the first goal, I don't think Tottenham would have been particularly proud of it, and they would have been prouder of almost any of the others that Czech managed to stop. They were all much better. All that they missed. They were all much better moves and much better goals, weren't they, than the ones they actually...
Yeah. I mean, a spectacular save, I suppose, needs a spectacular build-up to some extent. And, yeah, there was a bit... Yes, it was scrappy, the one that went in. But, some of the other saves were... Yeah, it's very cold comfort, but it's yeah, it's something that we were able to keep the score down, and that shouldn't really be our approach to these things. All right, without going into, let's not talk about the game too much anymore, because it's no fun for anyone, quite frankly. But I'm just going to mention a couple of things. I thought Ozil and Sanchez were terrible. I mean, Sanchez, for the last few games particularly, his passes are just soft and mislaid and just weak. They don't look particularly dangerous at all. Ozil did next to nothing, as far as I can tell. And these are 2 guys who earn God knows how much a week, between £500,000 a week between them. Well, that's what they'll want before too long. I'm not particularly bothered about the money, because that's the way things are these days. But I just think we need to think about, if there are going to be major changes, which surely there are going to be, do we want them to be a part of it? And the other point, just perhaps to mention, and see if anyone has any thoughts on it, is what happened to the team that beat City. Nearly the same 11, and City had their chances against us. They hit the woodwork themselves, and we needed a good save or two in that game. But we just look so much more organised, so much more, again, using the cliches, desire and organisation and all the rest of it. But it's true. It's in a difference of a week, and you're in the North London derby, and they look like ghosts of themselves from the previous week. And I don't buy the idea they might have been exhausted or anything. I just thought it was a shambles. Matt, any thoughts on any of that stuff, or anything else that you would like to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, the team performance just wasn't recognisable. I mean, I know there's obviously the argument that Tottenham are a better team than City, but they're not that much better that they should make us look shambolic. We were just so open. Against City, we had a good defensive shape and made it tough for them to break us down. Against Spurs, our wing backs were left hugely exposed. The 3 of Monreal, Koscielny and Gabriel did not seem to be in tune with each other at all. There are a couple of occasions where Gabriel wouldn't come up with the other two, or vice versa, and so they'd play Kane or whoever it was on side. I don't know what it was, but they weren't there at all. In the City game, our subs made a difference. Welbeck came on and stretched City. He came on against Tottenham. I don't think he came up. I don't know where he came on, because Giroud stayed on. I don't know if Welbeck was playing at wing back or somewhere on the wing, but he made absolutely no difference when he came on. Nor did Walcott, but obviously didn't have a huge amount of time. So I think between Tottenham being better than City and just, I don't know whether having Holding instead of Monreal at centre-back can make that much difference. But
No.
There was something about the communication that was not working at all.
Yeah, the communication is a very interesting point. Pete, any thoughts on that or any other aspects you'd like to discuss?
Only that I think not having Monreal at wing back can make that much of a difference. I think we said last week that Monreal was man of the match in that position against Man City, and he couldn't do that as a centre back. He can't do that. He can't get up that. Maybe he would have had some attacking threat if he'd been in that position. And Holding had been where he should have been rather than on the bench. But
I suppose it's that you don't know what the knock-on effects might have been had he, been able to have a bit more of a free rein. Yeah.
But other than that, I agree that both Sanchez and Ozil were awful, as well as Giroud. So it was completely dysfunctional and very odd. And I think certainly from that sense, from an attacking sense, it is partly down to the fact that Tottenham are a much better team than City, much better at this stage of the season, at this time, particularly defensively. And without wishing to praise them too much, they are light years ahead of City at the moment. Sorry, they are.
All right. Well, there's been far too much praise for Spurs over the last 25 minutes, so deserving or not, it's not our point. It's not what we're here for. So we'll move on. Well, actually, we'll move backwards. So very quickly, because it was a pretty forgettable game, but we should cover it because we try and cover all the games. Previous midweek, we played Leicester at home. I think I can zoom through it pretty quickly. Pretty forgettable game, but we got some luck in the 86th minute with an own goal. Monreal again, but I don't think you can take that much credit for it. It was a big deflection off Huth, which sort of did a bit of an odd bounce and spin and nestled into the corner. We did have the back three in place, but we had some different personnel. So Pete, you were there. Any particular thoughts or comments on this game? I think it was a game that had we not got that last minute-ish winner, we probably wouldn't have anything much to say about it at all.
No, it was eminently forgettable game, and it was interesting to see him try the same formation with different personnel. It was quite interesting to see that try with, but as I say, that's what made me even more surprised that not to go back to the Wembley formation against Spurs was plainly the personnel that were brought in to play those positions against Leicester did not play them as well as the ones who played at Wembley. So, for instance, again, Gibbs was in at wing back. Walcott was started up front, didn't he?
Yeah.
That they didn't work. It didn't work. Sorry, he was. Where did Walcott play? I can't remember now. But it didn't work at all, and we were fortunate to get away with a 1-0 win, which always feels very nice. But looking back, it wasn't a game to make us hopeful for the London derby. North London derby, other than the sense of, we seem to be on a bit of a run here where we're getting some good luck, and maybe, you never know, if we can keep things tight and solid, it might do all right. But other than that, it was totally forgettable.
Seems a pretty reasonable summation. Matt, any particular thoughts on that?
Not really. Just I thoroughly enjoyed Sanchez's attempts at time wasting.
Of course, yes, that was the only other bit of interest, really, wasn't it? Yes, at the end. Yes, go on, take us through.
Well, I mean, he just completely ignored the referee, really. About 3 times he got told to move back and he just didn't. So I thought the referee was going to come over and book him, but the referee just continued to allow it to happen. So that's fine. Fuchs then took quite the run up, threw it at Sanchez. Wouldn't say it hit him squarely in the face, as he may have suggested. And he took quite a delayed topple to the ground, which was all fine. All took some more time out of the game, and then I think he got into another argument with Huth, didn't he, a minute later?
He did. I think the fat lip that he then showed off on social media,
yeah.
I'm guessing that came from the thing with Huth, because I think he got something in the chops then, which, to be frank, he probably deserved a little something. But there was those interesting last few minutes. I think that was already into injury time, wasn't it, by then?
Yeah. And our defending was panicked, to say the least, when that long throw did come in. I think Gabriel took about 4 air kicks at it before he realised the offside flag was already up. So, yeah, didn't bode well.
No, it was a bit of an... Pete, you have a good view of that from where you sit, I happen to know, so that would have been a bit of entertainment for you towards the end of the game.
Yes, it was. It was good fun. It did remind me that I have no idea what the rule is on throw-ins.
Two yards, I believe. Is it 2 feet or 2 yards? I think it's supposed to the defending player is allowed to be has to be 2 yards or more away. I think it's 2 yards rather than 2 feet, and I don't think he was.
Was he not? Was he not? Well, I had no idea. I thought he looked like he was far enough back. And he was far enough back for me, put it that way.
Yes, you may not be the most
as far as I can see, if you throw a ball directly at a player, whether it's at their head or any other part of their body, you should be sent off for it.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it, that in theory at least, you are not supposed to react. There's no excuse. Retaliate. Yeah. That's why there's a retaliation.
You should leave it to the ref to come over and book him or whatever.
Exactly. And
if you throw the ball at his head, it's as good as, or any part of his body, it's like punching him.
I can understand the frustration of the Leicester player, but yes, it was an amusing finish to what was probably a fairly dull and worrying evening until those last few minutes. All right, great. Let's move on then. That's the previous game's done. 1-1 lost one. Go on.
There was the other quite amusing moment where I can't remember which Leicester, was it one of their centre backs who kicked Giroud in the...
Wait, did it get climbed on Giroud? Yes, I actually did have that as a note, and I missed it.
Quite astonishing, that was.
Well, he was using him as a ladder, basically,
yeah,
which you could see on
doing a bit of mountaineering.
Yeah, I don't know why he did he even get booked for that? I can't remember.
I don't think he did. No, it was that kind of game, wasn't it? The referee just went, I don't really care.
It was Benalouan. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but the Leicester defender. Yeah, absolutely, using him as a step ladder. But
no one was there. That was the other odd thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very few. But there was hundreds of empty seats everywhere.
I didn't notice that, but then I was on a dodgy stream, so I was spending most of my time just trying to get that to work. But so I didn't take great notice of.
Well, it was so bad, you could almost make out the white.
The cannon on the seats.
The cannon on the east stand lower.
This is the kind of stuff that isn't covered in other.
With enough empty seats, so. Yeah. See where the white lines were.
Other football podcasts don't cover this kind of important information. You see, that's what you get. That's what you get from being on the ground, as it were. Right, let's move on because time is ticking. We have a game to look forward to, and I use look forward to in a very widest sense. We are at home to Man United this Sunday, 4:00. We're not going to talk about the top 4 chances today, I don't think, because we'll run out of time. We'll wait till we've still got like 6 league games to play. So I know it's looking somewhat distant, but the Manchester clubs did drop points this week, one way or another. So that's something to cling on to. But this is, we need a win here, don't we, to keep up any vague outside chance we have. Matt, any thoughts on this game or that issue?
Just when you think we can't suffer anymore, Mourinho pays a visit. They're obviously on possibly the worst unbeaten run in history, stretching back quite a way, I think, but all of which have been draws. Their whole defence is injured pretty much, so I imagine he's going to come looking for a draw and not much else. I wouldn't bet against him getting that. I know we're not going to get out top four much, but if we are going to get top four, we probably do need to win this game. I don't know.
It's painful to think about, isn't it? Yes, I just for a second I'd forgotten the whole Mourinho aspect to this, which never makes anything better.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we know about their unbeaten run in their last 10 games. Just as a snapshot, 'cause I've got it in front of me on the BBC website. They've won 5 and lost 5, which if you did that throughout the whole season would be a respectable record, but you wouldn't. The number of points you'd get from doing that doesn't sort of hit you as a unbeaten kind of run. Well, I know we drew plenty when we had our whole season unbeaten, but the ratio it wasn't 50-50. Yeah, Pete, any thoughts on this one then?
Yeah, if there's one thing I'd still like out of this season and think we can achieve, it is finishing above Man U. So I'm actually feeling reasonably confident. I know it's ludicrous to be so, but I think it may be the best chance Arsene Wenger will ever have of having a league victory over Jose Mourinho. So I do hope he takes it. That they really aren't up to much. I don't think so. They're full of injuries and aren't that good anyway. So they're away from home. They haven't been very good. Well, they haven't been good at home.
They haven't been good anyway.
And as you say, so I think it's a very good chance for us to get the very minimum that one might want from a season, which is finishing above Man U.
Yeah, they've only scored 51 goals in the league. We've scored 64, but compared with Spurs and Chelsea, it's 71 and 72, for example. So this will be the resistible force against the immovable object, given our defence. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, if we do win, depending what happens elsewhere, there is still that squeak of a chance of top four. If United win the Europa League, of course, then in theory, the Champions League places could shuffle around, and England, as it were, could have 5 clubs in the Champions League. I'm stretching and grasping at any straws I can find at the moment, but there is one there that we can cling on to. That would possibly mean, depending on what the circumstances are, I might need to cheer Mourinho on in a European final, which pacts may need to be made with devils if that's going to happen. But I don't know. I think that may be irrelevant anyway, but we'll see. Okay, we can start wrapping it up, I think, given the time. I was going to talk about the bigger issue of what the club might be looking to do over the summer. I know we've discussed it before, but let's leave it for today because we've had enough pain talking about that Spurs game, so we'll put that on the back burner and see where we are in a couple of weeks. So, Matt, any other points you'd like to make about the Arsenal week?
No, it's a depressing note to finish on, but I saw a stat today that we haven't won away against anybody in the top 12 of the league this season. I know we've still got to play Stoke and Southampton away to complete that sort of top 12, but our record against both of those is less than perfect. So I always thought, well, not always, but in recent years, so to speak, I've had our away form down as pretty good overall, but this season obviously hasn't been the case, and not only have we lost most of those games, we've been resoundingly beaten. So a worrying thing to notice.
That's an interesting stat, actually. As I find most stats very interesting, but that's just another one to go onto the list of this season that are the underwhelming, as it were. But the top 12, to put it another way, of course, means we've only beaten the bottom 8 away, or any of the bottom 8, and that's whichever way around you put it, it's the same stat, but it's pretty damning, whichever way you consider. Whether it's you can only beat the teams way below you, and you just cannot get anything going against your rivals. I mean, we know our home record against the top 6 isn't very good either. That's quite a thing, and one of the many things one of the many pieces of evidence that go towards changes being required this year. Pete, any thoughts on that, or any other final thoughts on Arsenal's week?
I'll just say, come on, Watford.
There we go. Yes, I suppose we have that outside chance again, still very outside about Liverpool, but if they lose tonight at Watford, which is starting now, I think. There's something else to cling on to. There we go. It's not that clear cut yet, is it? I mean, we are falling away, but other teams keep giving us the tiniest glimmer of hope. But well, they're all scum for doing that. But there we are. Quite frankly, I'll be happy when the season's done, and I know I'm not the only Arsenal fan in that.
Oh yes.
In that mind, but we will have the cup final to finish on, and there's a chance there that it might, even whatever else has happened, at least we'll.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to remember is that we still have a chance of winning a trophy this season, and many others don't.
True. Well, there we go. There's an upbeat moment to leave it on. So we'll quickly finish there before we change our minds. So Pete, thank you very much for your company.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Matt, thank you for yours.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. We'll hopefully have a cheerier one next week, but it's not really up to us. It's up to how the team do. So we'll be back next week to talk about the United game, and we will speak to you then.